Wow, Bitcoin is down, right? It's been falling for the last few weeks, and we did break some lows here. So let's talk about that. And also, we're going to update my spreadsheet on my high yield ETFs. Because of this fall, am I down on the majority of my high yield ETFs now? Or has my method been helping me to stay green? But either way, it has been a rough time in the market for Bitcoin and anything associated with Bitcoin. Hello, my friends, this is Legend. So if you've been watching Bitcoin at all, I'm sure at some point you just stopped watching, right? It just got a little bit too painful to watch, personally, because it has just been falling. We were coming down after about October of last year when we were up around that 115 to 120 area, right? And then it started coming down. And we got down close to about that 100K, and that was a good support for us. It did bounce off of it, but then broke down below it around November, and it just kept falling through November. And it got down to about $80,000 in November before finding some type of support around that 85. It then started trading sideways, bouncing off of that, and then went as high, looks like around 97,000 before topping out. And then about mid-January of 2026, this thing started falling. And I said before that we had this support around that 85, that if we did break below that, we possibly are coming on down. And we did come down close to about that 85 and started bouncing off of it. As you can see right here, that's a bit of a support right there, about 85 roughly. And we were bouncing off of it before we broke it. And once we did break it, and I'll throw my lines back on right here so you can see right there was that support that I've had drawn in for quite a while, and it did break it. And then it became a resistance, as you can see right here, before falling down. And then I had this line at 77, and then I had the next one at around 70 to 71 area. And these lines are previous support lines or resistance lines, right? As you can see right here, we had a pretty strong support line right here, but we did break that. If you look right here, I had this one at around 71. And if we scroll right back on the history right here, you can see how strong that was for a resistance line previously. That one was a very strong resistance line. And once we did break up above it, it's now a very strong support line. So then we go back over to today, and you can see that if we zoom in right here, we were trying to respect it on this candle, but then broke it. And once we did break it and closed under it, it is no longer our strong support line. It is now back to that strong resistance line. And you can see that in these three candles right here, coming up, tapping that line and getting pushed right back down. Tapping that line and getting pushed right back down. So now we are at that 71.5 resistance line yet again that we do need to break. And if it cannot break that, it's going to get pushed on back down. And let's look at the next support lines that we're possibly going to be headed to if it cannot break through that 71. And we're looking at that 59, and I got one at 56 as well. And we can scroll way on back, and you can see way back here, we do have that support right there. And that was the 59. And then we've got the next one right here at around 56 to something like 53. And if we break these, guys, we're coming on down, right? Now, I don't know the future, and I don't know where it's headed, but if it does break that 53 to 50K right here, we really don't have another support until we get back down to the 20s to 30,000, right? I hope it does not get down that low, because that will seriously hurt our high yield ETFs, because they do take on that downside. But when it does start moving back up, it needs to move up slowly so that we can capture that upward move. But if we get those huge pop-ups, our high yield ETFs cannot capture all of that upside that quick. So that's kind of the key there. We take that downside, but that upside, if we get a pop-up and it jumps up to 88, we're not going to move up that much in our high yield ETFs that do use Bitcoin as the primary mover of that ETF. Now, a lot of people only think that MSTY is the one that is tied to Bitcoin, because MSTY's tied to Mr., which Mr. is primarily a Bitcoin play. So therefore, MSTY becomes a Bitcoin play. And if Bitcoin is coming down, Mr.'s falling, and so is MSTY. But you also have to understand that other ones like, say, Robinhood, which we have HUI, also are very much affected by Bitcoin. So there are quite a few other high yield ETFs that are affected by Bitcoin. And then you have the market. If the overall market's falling down and dropping, that affects all the rest of those high yield ETFs, whether it's NVDY or such. But when you have Bitcoin falling the way it's been falling here lately, from this 125 area all the way down to about 60K, woo, that hurts, right? It hurts, and it does affect our high yield ETF portfolios. But speaking of the high yield ETF portfolios, let's go ahead and let's update my high yield ETF portfolio that I'm using my stock tracker sheet to track each of those positions. And let's see if they're all red now or what. And here we are on my stock tracker sheet, and lo and behold, I do not have all of my ETFs red. Now, are they down? Yes, right? They definitely are down. Because if you remember in the past few weeks, this number here where it shows 12,500, that was closer to about 18,000, right? Because it has taken a hit, just like most of everybody's portfolios who are invested into stocks and other ETFs, because the market has been coming down and because Bitcoin has been coming down. So the high yield ETFs are not any different and will also take those hits. But by doing my method of only buying when it's under my real price per share, has definitely helped my portfolio to stay green. Because if I was continually to drip those distributions right back into those ETFs, I can just about guarantee that just about all of my high yield ETFs would show as red, because they all have come down. And if I was dripping those distributions right back in, that would have put my real price per share right here, which is this bottom number right here. That would have put that number closer to that market price. But as that market was dropping, therefore that market price would drop, and my real price per share would still be what the previous market price was. And therefore, all of these would then turn red. And that's why I do not drip these high yield ETFs. I do buy shares of these high yield ETFs when it is below my real price per share. Now, as I stated a couple videos back, I was putting a hold on purchasing because Bitcoin had broke that support line. And if we go back to that, that was that 85 area right here, which I considered a very strong support right here, right? So when it did break that, I decided to put a hold on purchasing more shares of these high yield ETFs, because once it did break that 85, I don't know where Bitcoin is headed. And obviously it's been going down, right? It's went from that 85 to as low as 60. So I do not want to continue buying as this thing is dropping, right? Because as Bitcoin's dropping, so are all of my high yield ETFs for the most part. but by me buying only when it lowers my real price per share helps to continually drop that real price per share and never to raise it up. So therefore, when the market price of that ETF does come down, I've got plenty of buffer. As you can see on NVDY, it's dropped down to 14 bucks, but my real price per share is still $11.84. Now remember, I haven't entered in any distributions yet. This is before I'm entering in the distributions. This is before updating my spreadsheet. I am still green, and I still got a nice little buffer of about 8.5%. Now, it is definitely not as high of a buffer as it once was, but at least I've still got downside protection because I'm using my method for when to buy those shares and when not to buy those shares. And of course, how do I know when to do that and when not to do it? Well, that's where my spreadsheet comes into play. Because if you can't track that real price per share right here, you have no idea where you are currently setting in your position. And that's why being able to track your real price per share for each of your ETFs is so important. Because if you're not, how do you know where you really currently set? And to get a copy of this so that you can track your real price per share, come on over, join the Discord. The link to do that will be in the pinned comments and down in the description below. Now let's get to the fun part. Even though the market has been dropping, I'm still going to be lowering my real price per share for each of my high yield ETFs that I've earned a distribution for. So even on a down market, and even though it has been rough, I am still lowering my real price per share. So we'll start right off with CONY. And to get to CONY on my spreadsheet, if you do use it, when you're on that summary page, you can go to any of those ETFs directly. Just by hovering over the ticker symbol, that hyperlink will pop up, and then you can go straight to that individual sheet, enter in your information, or just check the details. But the majority of the information that you just want to view is right here on this page. And that is why I love this spreadsheet, because it does give you all of your information right there in front of you for all of your ETFs. You do not have to scroll through on your phone. You do not have to look at multiple spreadsheets. This is all together on one single sheet. And I can scroll over and you can see that each of them are green except for CONY, ULTY, and scrolling on over, WHY, and that's it, right? So I'm down to just 3 that are red. The rest of these here are all green. Now, of course, if the market keeps on coming down and these keep on dropping, eventually, yes, it can eat into that buffer. But wouldn't that be true for any stock that you're in? Right? Any stock that you own shares of, if it continues to come down, eventually it gets below your purchase price and therefore you are red in that position. So that's true for no matter what. So let's go ahead and update this spreadsheet, and we're going to start right off here with CONY. Hover over the ticker and click the hyperlink, takes you directly to that individual sheet where you can enter in all the purchases you make along with the distributions that you do earn. Now, this date here that I enter in for that distribution is the X date. And that X date is important because that tells me the date I need to have owned those shares by in order to earn the distribution. So any date over here on the purchase column that is before 2/5, which is the X date, then I can count those shares for that distribution. And since on this sheet, my latest being 128 is definitely before 2/5, therefore I can count all 175 shares for this distribution. So that's exactly what I'll enter in right here. And that's going to be 175 shares at a 28 cents distribution on CONY. So therefore, it's going to lower my real price per share because I am increasing the distributions earned, therefore decreasing the amount that I have invested. So 175 shares is going to lower my real price per share of $42.91 down to $42.63. And yes, I am still down in CONY. And if I did buy shares, yes, that would definitely lower that real price per share as well. But I'm going to wait until Bitcoin becomes a little bit more stable at a position because I don't know how much further it's going to fall. So even though I have $9,400 invested, if I were to sell all my shares of CONY at the current price, I will lose money. Yes, of course I will. Because my real price per share is $42.63 and the current price is $27.38. But I will not lose $9,400. I'll lose $2,668. Now, yes, that's a lot of money, right? But again, Bitcoin has not been helping me out much on this one. So I have put a hold on the purchases, but I do hope to resume those purchases once Bitcoin can level off. And moving on, we have PLTY. And for PLTY, we earned 35 cents. How many shares do I have? 37 shares. I did not make any purchases, and that will be a true statement for all of these high yield ETFs. As I've stated, I have put a hold on the purchases until Bitcoin can level off. So I have a total number of shares of 37 at 35 cents per share. That's going to lower my real price per share here of 54 cents. And it will also lower that number of distributions before payoff here, okay? That's currently at 2 more distributions. So those 37 shares at 35 cents per share is going to lower that real price per share from 54 cents down to 18 cents, guys. Oh, yes, right? And look at there. Number of distributions before payoff, 1. I only need 1 more distribution before this one is paid off. Now that's an estimated number of payouts for that distribution, right? That is not guaranteed 1. That is an estimate. But come next week, I am hoping to be able to show this one as paid off. Now remember, about a month or so ago, I told you that this one looked like it was going to get paid off by the end of February, and it's looking like it's going to be closer to the mid part of February. Oh, so excited, guys. Yes, PLTY has been coming down, but guess what? I am still also dropping my real price per share, which then my distributions that I've earned here is getting ready to topple over my capital invested, and therefore this one is going to go green, and we're going to see this here changing to paid off. I cannot wait. And why is that exciting, right? Why? Well, the biggest reason is just because at that point, YieldMax has paid me back all of my invested capital. And a lot of you are going to say, well, yes, you've just been getting paid back what you put in. You ain't made nothing. You're absolutely right. I have not made anything until those distributions exceeds that capital. And once that exceeds the capital, guess what? I am now making money. But here's the bigger thing. I no longer have any money invested into PLTY. Because think about it. I just got paid back everything that I put into it. And I still own the shares. I still own 37 shares. And I have no money invested. And that should be a true statement come next week, as long as we earn a distribution that will push me right over that capital that I have invested. And once that's true, as long as I do not purchase shares above the amount of money that I earn from the distribution, that statement of those shares being free and clear will stay true. Now, like I said, I will still own shares, but I will have none of my money invested. So just for holding those shares and not selling them, just for holding them, and I have none of my money invested, they're still going to pay me every single week. As long as they continue paying out distributions, I will get free money. This is 100% passive income at this point because I am doing nothing I got all of my money back. Now I can use that money, reinvest it into whatever I want. And this PLTY is just paying me just for it being still active and for just me owning shares. And that is true passive income. So I'm super excited, cannot wait for that to happen. And it looks like next week when we update this spreadsheet, we're going to get to see this one flip to paid off. I just get a little excited because I love to get these paid off. And moving on to NVDY. And NVDY, we earned 9 cents. I have a total of 71 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $11.84 now becomes $11.75. And that current price being 14 bucks means if I had to sell all my shares at the current price, I'm going to make $159. And no, that's not a whole lot of money, but the market has come down and I am still keeping it in the green. For ULTY, we earned 45 cents. I have a total of 56 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $37.01 now becomes $36.55. So yes, ULTY is dropping, but guess what? I'm also dropping my real price per share. So I might not be able to drop it as far as ULTY drops if it is coming down, but the idea is eventually ULTY has to find a support, trade sideways, or start moving up. And at that point, I'm still dropping my real price per share. And eventually, the idea is that it does get to the point where that current price will be above my real price per share. And even at that point, my real price per share will continue to drop. And then each week, I am creating a bigger gap between that real price per share to that current price. And that is why this spreadsheet is so important, because it shows you the numbers right there in front of you. You can see it, and all of this is available on that summary page. So you do not have to even flip between the tabs here. It's all right there and easy to look at. And of course, to get back to that summary page, it's pretty simple. You hover over this little button right here. You click it, it throws you right back to that summary page. And you can see right there, there's ULTY, and it's going to tell you what that real price per share is. It's going to give you the percentage up or down. It's going to provide you how many shares, what that current price is, how much the market value is worth, and how much you have invested in it. So it's all right here for you. So you do not even have to flip between the sheets, but you do have to enter your information. And that's why you do have the individual sheets. So to get back to ULTY, we'll just hover over it, click it, and we're right back to ULTY. So at that real price per share of $36.55, yes, it is still above that current price, but I am bringing it down. So therefore, that gap is shrinking. And eventually, I'm hoping to get it below that current price so that gap can then start increasing, but in my favor. And moving on to MSTY. For MSTY, we earned 30 cents. I got a total of 95 shares. And therefore, that real price per share of minus $6.76 now becomes $7.06. And why is it negative? Well, that means that that's how much I'm in the good. Because if you add in the distributions I've earned, along with that premium, that exceeds how much I actually have invested in MSTY, or had invested, right? It's a past tense because it is paid off. And I have earned a total of $671 beyond the amount that I had actually invested in it. And when it is paid off, it will also tell you at the current price how many shares you could buy and still stayed in the paid off status. So I could turn right around and I could buy up to 27 shares of MSTY at that current price of $24, and it will still stay paid off, but it will increase my share count. But we do need Bitcoin to level off before I would make any purchases of these high yield ETFs. But it does not mean that you have to reinvest this right back into MSTY. You can reinvest this into a different stock altogether, a buy and hold, an option play, whatever you wanted to use it for. And moving on to SMCY, I have a total of 300 shares at 9 cents for the distribution. Therefore, my real price per share of $8.03, which is below that current market price of $8.48. Not much, right? Not much, but it is under it. But since we did earn that distribution, I am going to be able to increase that gap just a bit more. And this is in my favor, right? Because I need my real price per share under that current price. So that 9 cents is going to drop that 803 real price per share down to $7.94. So I have just gave myself yet a little bit more of a buffer from that current price. Now, it doesn't mean that I want SMCY to come down. I would prefer it to go up to give more buffer area and to also help to increase those distributions. Because as the price does increase, it does seem to correlate with the distributions that are paid out. But either way, so far, I am still good on SMCY and on AMDY. Now, AMDY has come down a good bit, but check this out. My adjusted price per share is still $29.95, and I haven't entered in my distribution yet. And with that current price of $32.65, currently, I'm still good. But I'm getting ready to increase that gap just a bit more by adding in that 34-cent distribution for a total of 164 shares. And now my real price per share of $29.95 becomes $29.60. Little by little, I'm increasing that gap. Even if that market price comes down, I am giving myself even more downside protection. And on YMAX, we earned 8 cents. I have 758 shares. My real price per share of $7.37 now becomes $7.29. And that current price of $8.76 means if I had to sell all my shares at the current price of $8.76, I would make $1,117. So yes, YieldMax has been coming down, but because of my method, I'm able to still stay green. And moving on, we have HUI. HUI, we earned 35 cents. I've got 116 shares, and that will lower my real price per share of $45.67 down to $45.31. And yes, I am down on HUI because it has definitely been dropping. And HUI is subject to the drop with Bitcoin. So since Bitcoin has been falling, HUI's been falling as well. But still lowering that real price per share is only helping me to keep that gap between the current price and my real price per share from getting too far away. But I do need a little help from the underlying of HUD to get HUI stabilized. And it all needs a little help from Bitcoin. Moving on to QDTE, we earned 7 cents on QDTE. I've got 155 shares, and therefore my real price per share of $22.71 lowers to $22.64. This one I am still green in, and if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of $30.12, I would make $1,160. On IWMY, I have a total of 551 shares. We earned 11 cents on the distribution. Therefore, my real price per share of $15.66 now drops to $15.54. And that current price being $20.24, selling all those shares at that current price, I would make $2,590. On QQQY, I have 551 shares at a 13 cents distribution. My real price per share being $20.11 will drop now to $19.98. And current price being $22.61. If I were to sell everything at that current price, I would make $1,449. And you can start to see why this spreadsheet is very helpful because it keeps track of where you're currently at, whether or not you're up, down, how much you're going to make, or how much do you stand to lose. On WDTE, I have a total of 540 shares at an 18 cents distribution. My real price per share being $26.32. And that's dropping down to $26.14 with that distribution. And that current price being $31.25 means if I had to sell all my shares, I'm going to make $2,756. But of course, my goal is to get this real price per share down below zero so that this one will get paid off as well. And that is the goal for all of these high yield ETFs. Next is JEPQ, and JEPQ is a monthly payer, so I do not have a distribution to enter in for JEPQ, but my real price per share is still $10.19. The current price being $58.05 means if I had to sell all my shares at that current price, I would make $2,632. And last but not least is DIVO. And for DIVO, that's a monthly payer as well. And I do not have anything to enter in for the distribution here, but my real price per share is $45.12. The current price of DIVO has gone up, and it's went up to $47.11. So this one now, if I were to sell all 12 of my shares, I would make $23.91. So DIVO and JEPQ have actually moved up in the stock price. Now, it does not pay a whole lot in that dividend or distribution, but you do get a little bit of a upward move on that stock price. So it is a little bit of a better scenario of both worlds, right? So that wraps up all of the high yield ETFs that I currently own. And of course, if you would like to get a copy of this spreadsheet so that you can enter in all of your high yield ETFs, each individual one that you do have, so that you can track what that real price per share is to find out where you really sit in your position, then come on over, join the Discord. That link is in the description and in the pinned comments below. Would love to have you. And not only will you get this sheet, but you'll also get notified whenever I make purchases of any high yield ETFs, any options that I'm doing, or any other stock plays that I am in. I do let all my Discord members know so that they can watch the journey that I am on. Now, one thing I do want to point out, and let's go back to the summary page right here. And here we are. And remember that green number that when we started, before we enter in our distributions, it was closer to that 12.5 thousand. Well, guess what? It just went up to 13,000 after entering in all those distributions. So those distributions helps to increase the amount of money that I stand to make because I am capturing those distributions. Now, even though some of these ETFs have fallen in price, what is the actual percentage that I'm actually making on some of these? And let's take a look at PLTY because this one is just getting ready to get paid off. So we'll hover over the ticker, click, and right there we are back on the actual individual sheet that we were just at a little bit ago, where we enter in our distributions. But if we were to find out what percentage this is actually making, say, per month, we can do a quick little calculation right here just to get an idea of roughly what kind of percentage I'm looking at making per month, even after this thing is paid off. Now, granted, I won't have any money invested, but if I was still using that total capital that I had invested, what would that percentage be that I would make free and clear per month on PLTY? So to do that, we'll take what that actual weekly distribution would be. And this is the average over the last 4 distributions, 38 cents. So we'll take that 38 cents and we'll use that as the average distribution. So I can take that 38 cents for the distribution, and I can take that times how many shares? 37 shares. So that's how much per week I'm actually making. And we'll take that divided by the capital that I have invested, and that's roughly $22.44. So we've got our earnings per week per the amount of capital invested. And we want to take that amount times 52 weeks to take it to 1 year. And then we want to find out what that monthly is. So we'll take that and divide by 12. And when we hit enter, we'll find out what that percentage is. And there you go, 2.72% per month. Now, honestly, if you can earn 3% on your money in a month, you're doing good. Because if you take that amount that 2.72%, and you take that times 12, you get 32.58% in a year. And that 32% a year, that's good. Because on average, SPY gives at around 12% per year. So 32% in a year, that's a very good percentage on your money. And remember, that's not really 100% accurate because I actually would not have any of my capital invested. This would actually be 100% free and clear, right? But just to give an idea, that's roughly what I'm earning per month and per year. And that's pretty cool, right? That's some good money. But going back to my summary page here, you can see scrolling across, I only have those 3 that are red. The rest are green. This is looking still pretty good, even though the market has been coming down and Bitcoin has been coming down. So come on over, join the Discord, because you really need to get this sheet so that you can track each of your high yield ETFs. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. It would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, legend out.